Hey guys!
And gals!
Today we will have a look at a very unique module from Störmelder, the 8-Face, which is basically a preset saver, so there are many ways you can use it to help you build more complex patches. Here for example we have the Sec3, it's sequencing the additive vibration, it will sound like this. I have the first row sequencing the pitch. The second row is sequencing the fall times or the decay times, and the third row is sequencing the FM amount. Now this sounds nice, but we can use 8-Face to turn this 8-step sequence into a much longer and more complex sequence. So first of all, let's set 8-Face, which I have here, to work with the module on its right, which is in our case the sequencer. So in the right click menu we have here module, left, if I click it once, you can see there is a white arrow here pointing right, and also we can see module right. So now it will work with, in our case, the Sec3. Now 8-Face will work as an expander, so it will have to be close to the module you want to work with, and it can work only with one module at a time. Now we will switch this to write mode. We have here read and write, so switch it to write mode. Let's save this sequence to slot number 1 just by clicking on it, and here you can see it turned red. Now let's change the sequence a bit. Very nice, and save this to slot 2. Okay, now if we go back to read mode, now I can switch between the sequences just by clicking here. You can see the knobs are also moving. Very nice. Now let's save again sequence 1 to slot 3. So we have 1, 2, 1. And now we have another variation on slot 4. Something not so much. So this will be on slot number 4. Now we can turn off, if we go back to read mode, we can turn off the rest of the slots we don't use, or we will not use in this case. In this case I want only 4 slots. All we have to do is long press the last slot in our sequence. And now you can see the last 4 turned off. Very nice. And now we have a few different variations of this sequence and a few ways we can switch between them. So if you look again in the right click menu, we have the port slot mode. We can trigger this forward, for example. So let's connect the first gate output of the sequencer to the slot input. Very nice. Also the reset from the clock, just in case. And now with each cycle of the sequence it will play 8 steps and then trigger the 8-Face, and we will have variations of the sequence. Oh yeah. You can also trigger this backward or reverse. We also have ping pong. It will go forward and reverse. And we can also trigger this randomly. So it will randomly jump between the 4 different variations we have. And we have a few other options that we will look at later in the video. But for now let's bring this back to forward, so it will trigger this forward. And now instead of having an 8-step sequence, we have a much longer sequence with more variation. Very nice. I have here another example with an ADDR sequencer that can also work really nicely with 8-Face. I have one ADDR sequencing the pitch of plats and one sequencing the FM amount of plats in 2-operator FM mode. And again I have different variations saved on 2 8-phase modules, one for each ADDR sequencer, and I can switch between them. So let's unmute this. You can see I have the steps changing, but I also have one slot where I have different number of steps. So this is also quite cool. And now we can use a divided clock to sequence between them. So let's use a divided by 4 clock and also reset everything so it's nice and in sync. Oh yeah. Very nice. So here I have 4 variations, here I have 8. This one is receiving, or those 2 8-phase modules are receiving a divided clock. And another really good example is the grid sequencer, which is super intuitive and can work really nicely with having presets. So here it's sequencing a sort of a bass drum, FM bass voice, sorry. Let's listen to this. Oh yeah. And also here I have a few slots saved, so it will change the pitch and also the gates. Oh yeah. This time let's use a divided by 16 clock, and again reset everything. Very nice. Sequenced here. So the patch is moving, there's variation. Okay, I also have here some drums sequenced by the gate sequencer from Impromptu. Let's listen to this. Oh yeah. Very cool. Now this gate sequencer from Impromptu has also song mode, so we can actually program all of those changes within the sequencer itself. But also here 8-phase can work really well, especially if you are not familiar with the gate sequencer or you just have an idea you want to lay down quickly. So again here I have a few variations saved. Like this for example. And I have here the port slot mode on random, so it will jump randomly between the 8 different variations. So let's trigger this with a divided by 4 clock again, and again reset everything so it's nice and in sync. Oh yeah. Very cool. Okay, so this was using 8-phase with sequencers. Let's have a look at another way we can use it. Okay, so here I have the tables sequencer from Admiral. This is sequencing the percussive vibration. In this case it will sound like this. And as you can see, there is another version of 8-phase, it's called 8-phase times 2, which has 16 slots. So if you need more than 8 slots, you have this version you can use. And here I'm using this one to change the parameters of the percussive vibration. So I have 10 sort of snapshots I can use, and later on we will sequence this also. Now this is going through Chronoblob 2 and Plateau, and also for them for each I have an 8-phase module. with different snapshots saved. Now I also have all three of them set to be triggered randomly, so they will jump from one snapshot to the other. And now let's sequence them. So I will use the same trigger from the sequencer to trigger the 8-phase modules. Oh yeah. Oh man. So we have many different variations. Oh yeah, that was nice. Let's add also a nice kick drum with tremor too. Oh yeah. I also have here a nice bass. The even VCO is going through the bass module from Outin. This is going once directly to the mixer, but once to a high-pass filter and some delay, it will sound like this. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Oh man, okay. Okay, now the volt modules, here I have VSEC for example. The volt modules are also quite fun to sequence with the 8-phase because of the modulation matrix. So here again, VSEC, I have also sample and hold going to 3 different slots from the modulation router, here it's called. And with each snapshot it will be routed differently, so here you can see it's going nowhere, all 3 of them are off, but here the first snapshot I have it going to the fold and the pulse width of the second oscillator, then it's going to the FM and sync, then it's going to the fold, sync and FM, so you can get really different sounds with each snapshot. Now this is going through a VCA and some delay. And I have here also an AD envelope, so let's really trigger it. This will open the VCA. Let's trigger it with the divided clock, every clock divided by 24, and use the same one. Oh yeah, the same clock to trigger also 8-phase. And again, also here it will move randomly. Oh yeah. One more time. Oh man, this is nice. Okay, let's have a look at another way we can use 8-phase. Okay, so now we will have a look at how this can work with creating scenes with mixers, and before we do this actually I want to say the different mixers will react differently to 8-phase, so you will have to experiment and see which one is working best for you. So here I have a drum groove with the gate sequencer again from Impromptu, a few different voices. They are going to the mixer from Bog Audio, and I have different scenes set here on 8-phase. So here is one with everything muted. Then I have here one with the hi-hat. Oh yeah, then hi-hat and kick. And then all of the voices. Oh yeah. Here I have another voice, a sort of an FM voice going through some delay, and I'm using 8-phase just to create more variation in the sequence. This sequencer is Modulo. It will sound like this. Let's wait for it one more time. Oh yeah. Okay, now if I want to switch the scenes now of the mixer, I will have to be quite on time, quite on the beat, so it will sound somewhat reasonable. It's quite hard with the mouse. Like now, for example. so it's not so comfortable with the mouse. And for this we have an option in the right click menu of 8-phase. We have the ARM mode, so let's select it. And now we can send a clock to the slot input. I will use the main clock. You see nothing happens because now the changes will be quantized to this clock. So if I zoom in a bit, you will see that I will click a certain slot and it will turn light yellow, and this will be armed until the next clock arrives, like this. So now all the changes I make will be quantized to the clock, which is quite cool. I have here also a bass voice triggered by the gate sequencer. The voice itself is Voldemar going through tangents with some chronoblob for widening and another chronoblob for fun. And this is going through a mixer, and also here I have different slots saved or different scenes saved for this mixer. It starts here. Oh yeah. Now again, if I also set this to ARM and I have the clock here going to the slot, what happens when I want to change both of them at the same time? It's quite hard or even impossible with the mouse, with one mouse. I have one mouse and two modules, I cannot do this. So there's another option here in the right click menu which is called C4, which it will follow pitch, so C4 will be slot 1, C#4 will be slot 2, and so on. So let's disconnect the clock from the 8-phase module and let's change both to be in C4 mode. Very nice. And here, by chance, I have 12 key from Impromptu, but this is just for the demonstration. Of course, you can use your MIDI keyboards as well. It will work perfectly also with the MIDI keyboard. So let's send 12 key to the 8-phase modules. Already you can see there is a change. And now we can change the slots at the same time. So again, C4 will be slot 1 for both. C# will be slot 2, 3. Oh yeah. 4 is with bass also. 5 is without a snare. And 6 is only a hi-hat with bass. Oh yes. But the thing is, it will not be quantized to the clock because it's not in ARM mode anymore. So again, it will be quite hard to hit exactly the right spot on the right spot. So what we can do, we can use sample and hold, and here I have again sample and hold ready. Magic. And what we will do is this, we will send 12 key first to the sample and hold. So this will be the signal the sample and hold will sample. And we will use the clock to trigger the sample and hold, the main clock that we've used before. And now, only with this clock there will be any change in signal. In this case it will be change in pitch, so it will be practically quantized. And this we can send to the 8-phase 8-phase modules. And now I can be quantized to the clock and mute and unmute the different voices. Oh yeah. One more time. Oh yes. Okay, now of course you don't have to use a mixer. So here I have the mixer from Nischi. You saw the mixer from Bog Audio. This is the mixer from Nischi. I have only one stereo channel here, so maybe it doesn't make sense to use a mixer. So you can use also a mute module. This one is the one from Eliakin's, which is also stereo. And with another help of an 8-phase, you can just set different scenes to mute and unmute the different voices. So you can have a few of those mute modules spread in your patch, and you can, with your MIDI keyboard or with the mouse if you want, you can mute and unmute the different voices and by that create scenes. Now I have here another example of something that doesn't work so well. In this case it's with the mind meld mixer. So I have here an 8-phase with two different scenes, one with the bass and one with the bass muted, but listen to what happens to the drums, for example, when I change the scenes. They become smeared like this. Like this. So they lose their transients a bit. So this doesn't work so well with the mind mixer, but you can experiment with different mixers and mute modules and get your results. And that was it. Of course, there is a lot to explore still. Like always, there will be a link in the description to the different patches. Feel free to download them and take a closer look. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you enjoy what I do, consider becoming a Patreon. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell. And have a good one.